Coming up on Global Business, China vows to further promote international exchanges and cooperation on science-tech as the 16th Pudong Innovation Forum concludes. China's new yuan loans rose sharply in August and money supply also jumped. And marking a decade of the Belt and Road Initiative, we continue our journey around the world to see what the BRI means for local communities. Hello and welcome to this edition of Global Business on CGTN. I'm Guanxing in Beijing. Chinese President Xi Jinping says China will continue to promote international exchanges and cooperation on science and technology with a more open mindset. She made the remarks on Sunday in a congratulatory letter to the 2023 Pudong Innovation Forum. Over 300 experts and scholars from around the world shared their ideas on how to strengthen international cooperation in a variety of scientific fields. And Ying Juyi has more.
This year's Pudong Innovation Forum sees 40% of all its guests hailing from overseas, coming to share cutting-edge ideas and boost international scientific and technical cooperation. The latest progress on projects including international thermonuclear experimental reactors and China's self-developed large passenger aircraft was shared at the forum's opening ceremony. Guest speakers at the opening also discussed an international effort to study phenotypes, the biological traits of a living creature.
The International Human Phenome Consortium consists of scientists from 20 countries. Our final aim is to obtain a large amount of phenotype data to make connections and build a map of phenotype networks. That will contribute to biomedical studies in the future.
Subforums to build bridges between investors and startup projects is also part of the forum, primarily in 3 sectors: biological medicine, artificial intelligence, and advanced manufacturing. Some 100 high-quality tech projects have been selected for demonstrations to have the opportunity to accelerate their fundraising and expansion.
We can get in touch with some investing institutions here and learn from some industry leaders. That will help us improve and upgrade our products.
That will definitely help us improve. We can be more clear about fundraising and other business patterns.
The forum released a report that more innovation is expected in China in 5 sectors: brain chips, quantum information, synthetic biology, hydrogen production, and blockchain. Ying Junyi, ICS for CGTN, Shanghai.
To Forex market, the Chinese yuan rebounded strongly on Monday with both the onshore and offshore currency jumping as much as 600 pips during the trading. Analysts say that the continued inverted interest rate between China and the U.S., as well as the increase in foreign exchange demand such as cross-border travel and overseas study, have put pressure on the yuan exchange rate recently. The country's foreign exchange self-regulatory body said on Monday that the Chinese economy is accumulating momentum following a series of supportive policies, and that will shore up the stability of the yuan exchange rate. Policymakers also stressed that China will resolutely fend off risks of the yuan overshooting and take measures to correct one-sided and pro-cyclical actions. Moving on, let's look at some recent statistics from the central bank. And now let's take a look at some fresh financial data released by the People's Bank of China. In August, China's new yuan loans rose by 1.36 trillion yuan or 188 billion US dollars. And this was 87 billion more than the figure recorded in August a year ago. It is a sharp increase compared with 346 billion yuan seen in July. Total social financing added 3.1 trillion yuan in August, 632 billion more from a year ago. Data also shows narrow M1's money supply increased 2.2% to 68 trillion yuan by the end of August. Broad measure M2 grew 10.6% to 287 trillion yuan. Now, for more discussions on the 2023 Pujiang Innovation Forum, we're joined by Chen Jiahe, Chief Investment Officer at Novem Archi Technologies. Good to see you again, Mr. Chen. So, the Frontiers of Future Industrial Innovation was just released at 2023 Pujiang Innovation Forum. What does it tell us about where innovation is going to be heading in the coming years?
Well, reading through the files and reports of this latest Pudong Innovation Forum, I think we can find a few key points or insights. The first one is global cooperation. People from many countries have been invited to this forum, and the official from Brazil has been given a very important speech. This shows us that the global cooperation has been risen to a very high standard for China's innovation. The future of China's technology improvement will be strongly associated with other countries, including things like information exchange, foreign direct investment, etc. The second is that the scale of Chinese economy has been mentioned, which means with such a large market that China has, which is one of the world's largest markets alongside Europe and North America, innovation will be able to get good return from this market. Of course, there are also many other things like 6G network, AI, high-end manufacturing, new medicine, etc.
So how will mapping out these frontiers of innovation help guide decision-making by companies and investors when it comes to future R&D spending and investments? What role could this play in attracting more foreign direct investment into China?
I think one of the most important highlights of this forum is that it has put a lot of emphasis on international cooperation. This strong message has many meanings. For domestic investors and businessmen, for example, this message means the innovation we make here can generate more income from the global market. Meanwhile, for global investors, China's emphasis on innovation and opening up means a promising market to them. So with more confidence with the opening up of China, more foreign capital as well as technology can then come over. Looking into details, this forum has been expressing this confidence at a very large scale. Totally 18 sub-forums have been set for different countries and regions. 20,000 job posts have been published and has attracted over 1,000 startup programs and over 700 investment institutions in sectors like medicine, AI, high-end manufacturing, all these kind of things.
And Mr. Chen, before you go, I want to have your take on the latest economic data on China's total social financing, also today's yuan's rally. What does it tell us about the status of Chinese economy?
Yes. Social financing data has actually beaten the expectation of the market. So look at the stock market right after this data was published in the noon. The Shanghai Composite Index jumped upward by about 0.5%. And I think the strongness of RMB is also associated with this data. Behind this financing data, there can be a few points. The economy has been recovering in the past few months. I was in Sanya last month, and I can feel the number of tourists in that city. Meanwhile, there has been quite many policies aimed at stimulating the real estate market. So there comes more investment and borrowing. Finally, the social financing in July has been pretty low. So a large part of the financing has been moved to August.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with us. That was Chen Jiahe, Chief Investment Officer at Novem Archi Technologies. And now we're heading for a short break. Still to come on the program. Marking a decade of the Belt and Road Initiative, we continue our journey around the world to see what the BRI means for local communities.
We're stepping out of the studio to take you on a brand new journey along the Belt and Road.
We travel to over 20 countries on 5 continents. Follow our cameras to all the interesting places, major cities, remote corners.
And so many more, we document not only massive infrastructures,
but also cultural links that bound the community with a shared future.
We invite you on the new Silk Road as we mark 10 years of the Belt and Road Initiative.
Welcome back. This year's G20 summit concluded in India on Sunday. Over the weekend, global leaders discussed the matters affecting the world and adopted the New Delhi Declaration. And for more discussions on the summit's impact on global economies, let's cross over to Radhika Bajaj in New Delhi and Trent Murray in Berlin. Thank you for joining us. So let me start with you, Radhika. What are the key areas that the G20 have agreed upon, and how would those decisions affect global economies?
Hi there. So the overarching theme, in a sense, for all discussions around the global economy at the G20 summit this year has been that of financial inclusion, so development and economic progress for all. And to that end, the biggest highlight has to be the inclusion of the African Union into the G20 as a permanent member. This is a bloc of 55 countries with a collective GDP of $3 trillion. So there is a huge opportunity in these emerging markets for early investors, and also benefits for them. Besides that, one of the key areas of agreement has been to reform multilateral development banks to cater to the needs of the global economy today and move away slightly from their founding objectives of just poverty alleviation. And to that end, an expert panel of global experts was in fact formed many months ago, and these experts will continue to work under the G20 ambit for the next year as they develop a roadmap for capital adequacy. And the G20 members say that the sooner this roadmap is agreed upon and implemented successfully, it has the potential to unlock about $200 billion worth of extra funding potential. So that is a key area that's being worked upon. And another area has been how G20 countries can attract private capital, especially for sustainability projects, projects aimed at climate action goals. To that end, they have been discussing how capital can be de-risked and what kind of subsidies can perhaps be offered to private players to ensure that they participate willfully in such global goals. Beyond that, we're also looking at decisions taken around climate finance itself. The G20 have set up a trackable new collective quantified goal to climate finance in 2024, and that starts from a floor of about $100 billion US. And besides this, we already know that G20 countries are cooperating on developing digital public infrastructure, and they've set up what's called the One Future Alliance to ensure that the needs of the developing world are kept in mind when progress is made on all these fronts.
Well, thank you, Radhika. And let me take this to you, Tran, because as Radhika just pointed out, a lot of the efforts are being made to give developing countries more voices and to recognize their needs for financing. So what's the reaction to this in Germany, Europe's largest economy?
Well, certainly from Chancellor Olaf Scholz, who of course led Germany's delegation, he has said that this was a big successful summit in his view. He said it was a summit in which the global north and global south were able to come together and work closer on economic cooperation. The African Union admission was certainly one very much supported by Berlin and has been welcomed. And of course we know that for Germany also that climate change does continue to be a major issue. And so we saw a big welcoming of the fact that G20 communique pushed a tripling of investment in renewable energy. That's something certainly the Europeans have been welcoming. We know also, of course, that the situation in Ukraine, of course, is having a major economic impact on Europe, and for that reason, Olaf Scholz welcomed the communique from all members around territorial integrity, and despite some pushback, I suppose, from Kyiv, he said it was an example of the success of the G20 being able to work together and come to a consensus around that. I think we also, of course, have to mention that major investment deal that was agreed upon, the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor that will effectively pair up those regions with new rail links and telecommunications cables. The EU, for what it's worth, says that it will speed up trade between India and Europe by some 40%. The German side has very much welcomed this agreement, but I think what Olaf Scholz has tried to say is it needs to make sure that it's being implemented well and that it works effectively. It's worth remembering, of course, China remains Germany's top trading partner, incredibly important to German businesses, and already there are rail links between China and Germany. They go from the likes of Chengdu and Shanghai nearly every day here to Hamburg. So already a lot of that rail link from the East is happening from a German perspective, but they are welcoming this new Indian inclusion as part of this new deal. So I think overall, from the Berlin perspective and the wider European perspective, this summit will be seen as a success, despite some divisions, of course, over some of the more controversial issues.
Well, thank you for sharing with us. And that was Radhika Bajaj from New Delhi and Trainer Murray for us in Berlin. So one of the priority areas for the G20 central bank governors is the launch and implementation of central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. In India, the digital rupee was launched last year in the hope it would address the challenges faced during cross-border transactions. Radhika Bajaj has more.
India's much-noted Unified Payments Interface, or UPI, crossed 10 billion transactions this August. The central bank is now hoping for similar success with the digital rupee, which was launched in a pilot phase in November 2022. The expectation also is that CBDCs, like the digital rupee, will tackle challenges like high cost and low speed of how cross-border payments are done today.
The empirical data that we are generating would go a long way in shaping the policies and future course of action relating to CBDCs. With its instant settlement feature, I believe CBDCs can play an important role in making cross-border payments cheaper, faster, and more secure.
At a time when there's an increased attempt at using local currencies for trade, especially in emerging economies looking to conserve USD reserves, digital currencies could play an important role. The RBI governor says that interoperability across multiple CBDC platforms or domestic payment systems would reduce operational cost and increase efficiency while ensuring consistency in standards across multiple jurisdictions. However, the journey of the adoption of the digital rupee is only just starting, especially when it comes to foreign trade.
While we may say that we could be trading in rupees accepted in the UAE, for example, but a receiver should be willing to take it so that he or she could use it to buy goods from other countries. Presently, that's not so because it is still a dollarized and euroized world economy where around 80% of the transactions are being conducted in dollars and euros.
At home, though, digital rupee enables traceability, and experts feel it would be useful for financial inclusion by easy monitoring of direct benefit transfers and other government programs.
India has been a leader in developing digital public infrastructure. The digital rupee takes that story forward. However, its successful implementation rests on increased financial literacy, secure network infrastructure and integration with existing systems. While a strong start has certainly been made, the dream of a cashless economy remains a distant one. Radhika Bajaj, CGTN, New Delhi.
And now, for more discussions on G20 Summit and vision for the future, we're joined by Xingding Yu, professor at the School of International Trade and Economics. And thank you so much for joining us, Professor Yu. So what do you think the G20 Summit has achieved in terms of promoting multilateral mechanisms and leading global economic recovery?
The G20 Summit has achieved very significant outcomes in advancing multilateral mechanisms and providing leadership in the global economic recovery efforts. First of all, leaders from diverse backgrounds and ideologies come together to reaffirm their commitment to international cooperation. This commitment has led to the development of new initiatives and frameworks aimed at addressing various global issues, including climate change, trade, and public health. Besides that, the inclusion of African Union as a former member of the G20 enhances representations, promotes diverse perspectives and global cooperation, contributing to the G20's role in advancing multilateral mechanisms for addressing global challenges. The G20 Summit has also played a pivotal role in guiding the global economy toward recovery. Leaders have discussed and implemented policies to stimulate economic growth, ensuring financial ability and promote inclusive development. Cooperation between developed and developing nations within the G20 framework has helped mitigate the economic impacts of recent crises, fostering a sense of shared responsibility for global economic well-being. So I think it demonstrates the ability of the G20 to bring together nations with diverse interests and priorities to work collectively for the betterment of the international community.
Well, given the frequent occurrence of extreme weather events worldwide this year, is the G20 moving fast enough on climate financing?
Yeah, this year with the frequent occurrence of extreme weather events globally, the summit has made very significant progress in addressing climate finance. I think the first outcome is increased commitments. The summit witnessed commitments from member nations to allocate more substantial resources to climate finance. This includes pledges to increase funding for climate adaptation and mitigation projects in vulnerable regions. And the second outcome is innovative financing mechanism. This includes discussions on green bonds, carbon pricing mechanism, and public-private partnerships aimed at attracting private sector investment into climate-resilient projects. These mechanisms are designed to bridge the financial gap required for transitioning to a sustainable low-carbon economy. And besides that, the G20 has also reaffirmed its commitment to providing financial support to developing countries, emphasized the alignment of financial flows with climate goals and the importance of transparency and accountability in climate finance. Member nations have also discussed strategies to redirect investment away from fossil fuels and towards renewable energy sources and sustainable infrastructure projects.
Well, thank you very much for your insights. That was Professor Yu from the University of International Business and Economics. Well, it's been 10 years since the Belt and Road Initiative was first put forward. Over the past decade, 152 countries and 32 international organizations have signed up to the initiative. And CGTN's reporters have traveled to 22 Belt and Road nations across Asia, Africa, Europe, and Latin America to uncover stories of collaboration, transformation, and people-to-people exchanges under the framework. Setting out from Kunming, capital of China's Yunnan province, our reporters are heading to Bangladesh, Egypt, and Cambodia. In this episode, our reporter Feng Yilei visits Bangladesh's capital Dhaka to check out a groundbreaking project, a modern sewage treatment plant that promises cleaner water and improved life for the community.
Dhaka, the sprawling capital of Bangladesh, is under the strain of its own rapid growth. The surging population comes with an increase in waste and sewage, which has overwhelmed the city's old facilities. On the city's outskirts, some of the sewage is getting a new lease on life at this Dashel County sewage treatment plant.
This state-of-the-art facility can treat up to 500 million liters of water per day, making it one of the largest in South Asia. But it's not just about laying pipes and building tanks. Actually, it is also the first time some unique Chinese waste treatment technologies are being used abroad.
By the end of August, nearly 200 million cubic meters of sewage had gone through an adventure, being lifted and pumped all the way to this plant, filtered, settled, treated with a 3-stage biological reaction, sterilized and tested. It all aims to ensure that the treated water meets international discharge standards.
Like 5 kinds of parameters we test, all the parameters result is like drinking water.
But it doesn't stop there. An exclusive drying and incineration system slashes sludge volume by 90%, transforming it into ash.
This is a rare attempt globally to have a sludge treatment plant combined with a sewage treatment plant within one plant. Due to shortage of land, it is costly to transfer and bury sludge or whatever waste. We adopt what is recognized worldwide as stable and mature water treatment process. After all, this is the first modern sewage treatment plant in Bangladesh. It's best to have a stable option that also operates at a relatively low cost.
And just a wall away from the plant, This grocery store has been here for 15 years. The owner and his son provided ice-cold drinks to the workers during the challenging construction of the plant.
There was no road, so we only did business with the Dashakendi villagers in the past. New roads have been built for the construction of this plant, bringing us customers from different places.
Clean water has been flowing into the river day and night for the past year and a half, bringing back the old days of using river water for irrigation, fishing and recreation for around a quarter of Dhaka's residents. But there is more. The processed sludge is used as material for bricks and cement in the city's thriving construction industry. With limitless potential, this initiative is dedicated to transforming more wastewater into wonders. Feng Yilei, CGTN, Dhaka, Bangladesh.
Meanwhile, our Zhang Nini takes us to Sao Paulo, Brazil, where she explores how a Chinese company's pollination plan is protecting local biodiversity and business.
Prazer, eu sou Edmar, sou apicultor, já faz...
Every morning, Edgar Alves drives past the large swaths of sugarcane fields, the main cash crop in the Novo Horizonte and the wider Sao Paulo region, to nearby hives in the forest. Today, we've been invited to join him.
So I'm getting into this protective clothing, and we're now heading into the hives to get honey.
Edmar is joined by his uncle, who led him into the business.
Here we go.
Once inside the woods, Edmar and his uncle gently remove the lid, smoking the bees out with a combination of corn and wax before shifting the honeycomb into boxes.
When you lift these honey boxes, you try to shake the bees off. Am I doing right? Is it okay? So into the box we prepared.
Swarms of bees may not be for the faint-hearted, but they play a vital role in our lives.
The bees are responsible for the fruits and flowers, the biodiversity we have here.
Edmar keeps 300 hives, producing almost 5 tons of honey every year. But up until a few years ago, beekeeping could be a worrying experience, as hives were easily threatened by the use of pesticides in nearby sugarcane fields.
The worst thing that I've ever seen in my life is when I go to a dead hive, and the thing I'm most proud of is showing people what we saw today, many bees flying around.
Based on COFCO's research, bees fly up to a radius of 1.5 kilometers. So the pollination plan draws a map of beehives and their foraging zones, where pesticides are banned. This gives farmers like Edmar peace of mind, but it's not all been plain sailing.
At the beginning of the program, we faced resistance from farmers, as many were reluctant to share the location of the hives for fear they'd be stolen. So our main challenge was to break this resistance and guarantee the beekeepers it'd be in their best interest. Today, we take care of 200 million bees in our area.
That's a lot of responsibility.
As a result of the program, local honey output has increased by 50%.
My income has increased because the bees don't die from pesticides, and I've also taken courses from COFCO on where to best put a hive, how to monitor hives, and how to give them genetic improvements along with the queens.
While inheriting the tradition of beekeeping from family, Edmar is working to keep up with the times. He now automates certain processes as he aims to boost efficiency and develop business. And he says he hopes this will sweeten his chances of selling direct to the Chinese market. Zhang Nini, CGTN, Sao Paulo.
And that would do it for this edition of Global Business here on CGTN. Thank you for being with us. The Point with Liu Xin is coming up next. Stay tuned.
This is